Hey everyone, welcome to the Healing Narcissistic Trauma Conference. I'm Susan Ball, your host for the event, and I'm here with the lovely Laura Forbes and the name of her website speaks volumes, quitdatingidiots.com. Hi Laura, thank you for joining me.
Hello, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be a great conversation because the reason why I found you and the reason why I thought, oh, this would be a great topic for everyone to listen to is because you talk about how to bounce back from that jaded flatlining feeling like nothing good is ever going to happen to you. This is, romance sucks, men suck, like the whole. So where does somebody begin to get past that sort of feeling of apathy, misery about love and romance?
Yeah, okay, cool. Well, it's a process, it's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight, as you obviously will know, especially if you have been involved with a narcissist or in an abusive relationship, and it's not just getting a bit of apathy from going on dates with people. So how does someone begin? The first step would be to acknowledge how you feel, and just acknowledge that I'm feeling a bit apathetic, I'm feeling like I've lost hope, and to probably at that point take a break from dating, and focus inwards on rebuilding that relationship with yourself to get clearer on what it is that you need and what it is that you want for your life and in a partner as well. So that would be the first step, to kind of take stock of where you're at and how you feel. And if you are feeling apathetic, that's usually kind of like a sign of you don't really feel, either you don't know what you feel or you don't feel anything. So start kind of doing getting curious and doing some exploratory work and kind of find that spark again of what excites you or what gives you pleasure, what do you actually desire. So that would be the first step there.
Yeah, because after you've been in an abusive relationship, oftentimes, and I know it was true for me and my clients, I didn't even know what joy was or what that meant, or smiling or happiness, never mind happy relationship. That was beyond my scope of understanding. But very important point that you made, acknowledging your emotions. Because we want to jam those emotions down and put a smile on our face, and that's not the way it works.
No, absolutely. And I've been there. I've been the same, felt that feeling of flatlining. And it was actually a friend of mine that, because I'd kept it all bottled up inside, didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to, I guess I felt shame around the situation that I'd been in. And I was saying to my friend, like, I feel depressed. I don't feel anything. I feel like I will never be happy ever again. And she was like, yeah, it sounds like you're flatlining. Like, you just kind of, and I was like, that phrase just sums it up perfectly. And that whole feeling of like, I feel like, what is it going to take to kind of jumpstart me back to life? And it was a process and an ongoing thing of trial and error and seeking and finding out what that actually is. And like you said, do kind of press down the emotions. So yeah, first step is to actually acknowledge them.
Yeah, and then to be curious.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Because I know I wasn't curious about anything. I wasn't curious about anything. But there is a certain process that we have to go through. So other things that you found that helped jumpstart your flatlined life again.
Yeah. So yeah, taking time, seeking help if you need it. Like, I went and saw a therapist and psychologist just to kind of validate what had happened, so that I knew that I wasn't mad and it actually was a thing. And then to help delve into those emotions and process them. Because yeah, for a long time I felt kind of dead inside. So how else I did that was journaling, meditating, getting out for a walk in the sunshine, getting out into nature, kind of having little dance parties with friends or on my own, just to kind of move the emotions through. And a lot of conversations with people, a lot of conversations with really good friends and, like I said, a therapist, to process and kind of defragment everything that had happened. And I found that really helped.
Yeah, and there is I love that you say move the emotions through you, because that is one of the things that I highly recommend when you're feeling miserable, you're feeling like you don't want to get off the couch. Make yourself get off the couch, even if it's just standing up.
Yeah.
And you sit back down again. Move something, because it moves your mind, it moves the emotions.
Yeah, and doing little things. So when it comes to like reclaiming your radiance and getting out of that flatlining feeling, I found that a lot of it was about rebuilding the relationship with myself. And through part of that was like doing little self-care rituals, self-love, self-nurturing, even when I didn't feel like it. So even on days where you just feel like staying in bed all day and not even having a shower, like making the effort to get up, have a shower, do your hair, like make yourself feel good. Just little acts of kindness towards yourself, and compassion and kindness is really a key part of recovery.
Yeah, acts of compassion towards yourself, acts of kindness. I like that, because and yeah, this brings up the point of, and I'm sure you'll agree, this is all about finding yourself, but also fulfilling yourself.
Yes.
So you're
And
not looking for outside fulfillment.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And especially if you've come so far from yourself and so far from who you are and your identity that you don't even know who you are anymore, you don't know what you want, that is a big adventure to go on, isn't it? And like you said, it starts with, I don't know if it's a decision or just the curiosity to begin to try and find that thread and keep pulling that thread and seek pleasure in whatever way it is. So it might be taking yourself out to a cafe with a book and getting a cup of coffee. It might be getting up to watch the sunrise. Just little things, you know, like if you've struggled to do it for yourself, like think, what would you recommend for a friend to do in this situation, and be encouraging to yourself to do those things.
Yeah, speak to yourself like you're your own best friend.
Yeah,
quote unquote. That's what they say, but it's true.
It is, and it sounds cliche, but it is what needs to happen, and to kind of change that self-talk and let go of any blame and shame and all that kind of stuff, and focus on the positives and the nurturing side, the gratitude for the little things, and literally go out of your way to find things to be grateful for, find things to appreciate, and find things to make you feel good again, because you deserve it.
Yeah, and one of the things that for me and anybody who's listening is having a sense of adventure, curiosity is really healthy. You don't have to like it. You can go and do it, and you can walk away and say, okay, meh, that didn't really work for me. Mm-hmm. That's okay. Just look for the next thing. You don't have to beat yourself up and say, oh, I picked the wrong thing and now I'm not happy. No, just be curious. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And from the frame point of, it's a process, it will take potentially time. And like you said, just keep going, keep going, keep going. It's the commitment to yourself to not stop until you get that radiance back, until you get that joy back in your life. And the only way to do that is to know that it is possible. And like by the conference that you're doing, you're obviously talking to a lot of people that have been through similar things. And there's plenty of examples out there of people who have been at rock bottom or been at that flat line and come back. So it's possible for everyone.
It is possible, but it is work. There's no straight line or magic formula, or if anybody tells you there is, they're lying straight to your face.
Yeah, and you've got to settle in, because it's like when it happens, you want it over and done with. You want to be like just back to feeling like you're back in the land of the living, and back to where, like, a life that you're happy with and feeling good about yourself. But it takes time.
Yeah, and don't force social activities. This is something that people do, and you've probably experienced this. You probably did it as well, as a way of filling in the blank, if you want to put it that way, filling in the emptiness. Don't force social situations. If you're uncomfortable, go home.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even if you go out and you make the plans, you go out and you find, actually, I'm not having a good time, it's fine to then excuse yourself. And obviously one of the things that's important is re-establishing your boundaries, but that again takes time to identify what they even are if you've been in an abusive situation, because you're probably either don't have any or they were long since trampled on. So it's those little acts, which again can be a process and an uncomfortable journey. I have a friend who finds it very difficult to say no. So she's always kind of putting herself in situations that she's not happy with, and then feeling the resentment for that, but even though she's put herself in that position. So she's going through that journey. She's come a long way, but she still finds it a work in progress to do that.
Isn't it amazing how many people cannot say no?
It's quite
such a tiny little word, and it's like, oh no, I gotta say no.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a little
panic
survey.
sets in.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I did a little survey on my Instagram page as to what, like, who struggles to say yes or who struggles to say no, and then why, for what reason. And the most prominent reason that came up was people are scared of hurting other people's feelings. So they'd rather take on the pain or take on that I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway, just so I don't upset someone or don't hurt their feelings by saying no to them. But as well as the communication, learning how to communicate that boundary in a way that's not offensive to anyone, and it's just you being who you are and setting your own healthy boundaries.
Yeah, and people who are your people will respect your boundaries.
Absolutely, yes.
That's a big learning curve for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And you will, I don't know if you found this when you went through your journey of healing and getting back in touch with yourself. You find out ultimately that a lot of people you are hanging out with are not your real friends.
I was quite lucky in the fact that because I moved countries, so everyone that I'd met in that country was kind of on my wavelength to begin with anyway. I mean, there was a couple of people that did fall by the wayside, I think, because I think people find this when if they suffer with depression or anxiety as well, like not everyone understands. And so when you do have to cancel on a plan, or when you do kind of, I don't know, distance yourself or talk about the same thing over and over, some people either can't handle it or don't know how to assert their boundary of, I can't listen to that because that really affects me. So yeah, it's it's a learning curve.
Yeah, I had someone who fell off of, I thought she was a friend, and we went out somewhere. I thought this was a good idea. I'd go out with her, and she introduced me as her friend Susan. Don't get her started about her tale of abuse.
Oh, really?
It was
Yeah.
like,
You don't need that in your life.
I hadn't planned on talking about it in the first place, but secondly, that's pretty rude.
Yes, because that's
Right?
not her story to tell. Yeah, to lead with that. No.
Yeah. So that, taking your power back.
Mm-hmm.
Baby steps. I know these are baby steps, but what are some of the baby steps you can take to re-energize your own personal power? Because I know when I left all my relationships, Laura, and you probably felt the same way, I felt like there was no power in me at all. I had no ability to say no or set a boundary. That was just all very foreign to me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the baby steps. Again, it's getting curious, and I've heard you speak about this in terms of once you've done the initial kind of grieving and mourning and processing those emotions, is then to get curious as to what was it or what is it within me that got me in that situation in the first place. And that's one of the first steps of reclaiming that power, is to take responsibility for that part of you that tolerated it and that part of you that accepted that and stayed when there was red flags galore. And that is the first step, is to take that power back, to identify that. And again, you might need help or an outsider perspective to help you uncover what that actually is, because it can be kind of a blind spot. So that would be the first step, to identify that, and then to do the necessary work around that. Again, starting with little boundaries that you can assert. And again, one of the key things is rebuilding the trust with the relationship with yourself, because that kind of has probably hit ground zero for a lot of people that find themselves in the flatline situation. And the way to do that is obviously to, like we talked about, show them yourself kindness and compassion on a regular basis, seeking out little pleasures, setting your boundaries, and committing to doing that inner work to make sure that you become a healthy version of yourself, a healthier person in relationships, so that you never find yourself in that situation again.
Yeah, and again, this always comes up, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because I get blasted a lot for victim blaming when I say that.
Yeah.
And it really annoys me because, pardon me, women or men who have been in abusive relationships, toxic relationships, cannot go on to understand or know healthy love until they know what was going on with them to keep them in that situation. Because if you look at somebody who knows healthy love and has healthy boundaries, I remember sitting back and thinking, how come I can't get a guy like that? Not recognizing it really had nothing to do with the guy like that. It was the woman like that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's not victim blaming at all. If anything, it's taking the victim out of the victim state by owning, because once you can own it, you've got the power to change it. If you don't take that power back, you don't have that power. Do you know what I mean? You've given it away. Oh, I was a victim, they did this to me, it could happen again. But if you take that time to go, okay, what was it in me? Because like you said, if you look at, say, a classic narcissist abuser, there's some women that would never come into that person's orbit. And even if they did, they wouldn't entertain them for a minute because they'd see exactly what was going on and it wouldn't progress. Whereas there's other people that will find themselves not only in that position, but then potentially in that position again, if they're not learning the lessons. So yeah.
And learning the lesson is to look inside.
Yes.
Not outside. So
yes.
No, it's not victim blaming. And I'm so glad we had this chat because it's actually come up all the way through this conference, because I think there's a lot of people who are getting fed up, a lot of experts are getting fed up with being called out as victim blamers when that's not what we're doing.
No, it's education and taking responsibility, taking the power back. Who was it? I'm trying to think of the quote. Was it like Eleanor Roosevelt, that quote about no one can make you feel inferior without your consent?
That's right. That was Eleanor Roosevelt.
Yeah, yeah. So sums it up quite nicely.
It does. And when I look back on my relationships, I can clearly see how I got there, what my role was, what I accepted that was really BS.
Yes.
But I went along with it, so I can see it now. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. Plus, you have to have it boosts your self-esteem because you get to know yourself.
Yeah.
You get to see you kind of get a sense of your weak spots.
Yes.
Where maybe you got to grow your intuition and trust yourself and all of that kind of stuff. You also become aware of the red flags that are your suck-in points.
Yeah, yeah. The blind spots.
Right?
Yeah.
And that empowers you. So when you do meet somebody else who has some of those things and they start circling around you like a shark, you can go, no.
Exactly. Yeah.
At the very least, you'll say, I'm going to go home and think about it.
Yeah. It's like with Quit Dating Idiots. It's like how many people have dated the same person over and over again, but just in different disguises, because you would keep attracting that until you change within yourself, so that you don't no longer tolerate that, you're no longer even attracted to that. But yeah, it's a process of inner work.
Yes, and trusting yourself again.
Yes,
that's a big one. Your intuition, because
yes,
and I'll let you go into this a little bit before we sign off or wrap it up. Women who have been in abusive relationships and have ignored all the red flags, when their intuition or their gut voice was going, hello, 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 listen to me. It's really hard to reconnect with that inner voice because you've kind of kicked it to the curb already. Does that make sense?
And not only have you kicked it to the curb, but the abusive partner that you're with has made sure that is well and truly kicked to the curb. 100%, yeah.
Yeah. So how do you start to trust that again? Just baby steps or?
Baby steps. So it's a big question, isn't it? And it's, again, takes time. I'm trying to think how to kind of distill it into a little answer.
I think for me, because I get asked this question and I can't come up with a specific incidents, but I think for me, it was doing little things, those curious things.
Yes, yes.
And kind of listening to myself and going, is this a good idea or a bad idea? And if nothing sort of happened, trusting myself that I had made a good choice.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a good way to go about it. I'm trying to think what I did again, for me, it was consistency was a big thing for me. So if I said I was going to do something, to then do it, follow through, to rebuild the trust at a very foundational level. And then in terms of tapping into the intuition, it was a case-by-case basis. So kind of, but again, clearing a lot of the crap, like a lot of the emotions that I'd been shutting down, to even kind of get to get back to that intuition, to kind of unearth it from all the stuff that had been put on top of it. And then also following like the pleasure. So what feels good, kind of going back to the emotional guidance system of that doesn't feel good, I'm not going to do it. This feels good, I'm going to pursue this. And again, just processing over time, and then it is a practice makes perfect, isn't it? It's like the more you do it, the more you experiment. Like even if you get a couple of things wrong, that's fine. It's just feedback, and you're safe and you're okay because you're checking back in with yourself again.
Yeah, and self-care is the same thing.
Yeah.
You have to keep doing it. And then eventually no one can take it away from you. Your time,
yeah,
that's your time.
Yeah, and it's a good one. I saw something that said self-care is not all about, you know, bubble baths and candles and walks in nature. Sometimes it's going to bed early when you'd rather stay up and binge watch something on Netflix, or it's prepping that meal rather than ordering a takeaway. Kind of like reparenting yourself has come up with the work that I've done as well, to, again, like the nurturing side of things, to be that person for yourself. You're no longer giving away the power, wanting someone to rescue you or take care of you. It's learning to do that for yourself.
Yeah, that's a very important point, because so many of us are in a situation where if there was a trauma in childhood, which can be anything, it doesn't have to be the big ones, it can be a small thing, but as a child we took it on in some traumatic way. I often say to my clients or to women I speak with, well, who's running the show, your child or your adult?
Yeah.
Because it's the child that sits on the couch and binges Netflix.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
It's the bratty little girl who goes there.
Yeah. A friend of mine said as well, she did some work, it may have been Brene Brown, and they say, what age are you? So, you know, when you go into kind of like that mode where you are like, oh, do I want to sit here and watch Netflix or whatever it may be, even in the abusive relationships, when you feel disempowered, is what age are you in that moment? So even taking a moment to go, because this is not me, adult me right now, making these decisions. So just even asking yourself that question and taking a moment to check in internally, like, how old am I right now in this moment? Do you know what I mean? To help maybe uncover and then chase that thread back somewhere and get to the root cause of things, because that's how obviously we deal them, put them to bed, and then move forward. I
often say that because, you know, this journey is lifelong.
Yes.
I would say to people, it's not something that you do. And every once in a while, even my husband will laugh at me because I'll say, oh, there's 7-year-old Susan. She just, no, no, we're not doing that. So, but when you're in touch with that and you get all those emotions out of the way and you get in touch with everything, it becomes very intuitive to know where you are and who's kind of guiding you.
Yes. Yes. And then, learning to guide yourself, take care of that part of you that is 7-year-old that wants, you know, someone else to nurture you, but you now have to be that person. Like, you can't no longer blame parents or whoever else might have been setting that up in you at an early age. It's, you've got to take control.
Yeah. And sometimes we don't want to.
Oh, no. No. And sometimes we don't. Sometimes we even, like, we know that and we'll still choose, you know what, I don't care, I'm going to be 7-year-old and binge for the night. But again, as long as you get back to it and don't make a complete habit of it, then.
Yes, actually, I'm happy you said that, because there are times when I do I revert to my 7-year-old and I think, well, you know what? I am going to eat ice cream for breakfast, and so what?
Yeah, so what?
And that's also healthy if you're at a space where you can. Control is the wrong word.
Be conscious of it. It's a conscious choice to do it rather than an unconscious choice. Yeah.
Then that's a great place to be, because you can't eat ice cream for breakfast without guilt or shame, and you can do things, and you are in a more joyful state because you're in touch with your child in a healthy way.
Yes. Yeah. In a conscious way.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining me. And I know that we talked before we came on air about your free gifts, so maybe you could give a little bit of an explanation about that.
Yeah, so I'm going to do like a little masterclass, and a little video covering in a bit more depth some of the things that we've talked about on here, and some exercises to go along with them so that people can work through them to get the actual progress and the results. Awesome,
because that'll be good. And if you want to find Laura online, her website is quitdatingidiots.com. If you can't remember that, It's the best name ever. Thank you so much for Laura for joining me on the conference. I really appreciate your voice and your expertise. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Until next time, everyone, have a great day. Bye for now.